Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and thank you for succumbing to my clickbait thumbnail today. I'm going to talk about some books that I've never talked about before on the channel. Now, I'm not going to reveal any deep, dark secrets. Well, I might. When I start rambling, I might accidentally let something slip. We'll see. We'll see how juicy it gets. I was thinking about topics for a video, and I was suffering from a little bit of tag fatigue. I do have plenty of tags that people have tagged me in and that I have not done, and I really appreciate when people think of me and tag me. But after a while, if I've done a kind of a spell of doing a number of tags in a row through several weeks, I start to feel that maybe I'm getting a little repetitive, because sometimes the tags have different topics, but the questions kind of lead me down through some of the same books a lot of times, because there's different ways of asking for recommendations that kind of, I don't know, I feel like I get caught in a loop where I'm talking about a small set of books repeatedly, and maybe I don't want to be boring. So then I feel like I need to just clear the decks and do some different kinds of content for a little bit, and then come back around to some tags in the near future. So I'm not giving up and never doing tags. I'm just not doing one today. So what I decided to do, this is totally random. I decided to just walk around in here in my home library and just grab a little stack of books from the shelf that I think I've never mentioned on the channel. And I could be wrong, because memory does not always serve anymore. And so if I talk about something and you remember that I did mention it before, well, you have better memory than me, and I'm a little scared that you have stockpiled everything I ever talked about in your mind. But it is just the most random stack of all time of just odds and ends, books on my shelves, in some cases questioning why I even have this book. And I'm just going to chit chat about each one. You can tell me if you have read these or what you think about any of these, or whatever you want to contribute to this conversation. All right, number one is a famous classic book that I do have a copy of, and it is The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I don't think I've talked about this. I know I haven't talked about the content of The Heart of Darkness. I might have mentioned The Heart of Darkness at some point. This is kind of thick because it also includes critical essays, and I had to buy this for a class way back when. Can't remember if it was an undergraduate or graduate class, but I bought it. My notes are written through the book, and it is clear from my notes that I did not care for this book, and so that is why I've never read it again. I just didn't like it. Stephen also did not like Heart of Darkness, and this is a funny story. So several years ago, when my daughter was in high school and she was taking AP English, at some point she came through, whenever they had a different book assigned, she'd check and see if we had it, because a lot of times we do. And she said, "Do we have a copy of The Heart of Darkness?" And Stephen and I both just started laughing, because we both despise this book, and we evilly cackled because now she too was going to have to read The Heart of Darkness. So yesterday, when I got this idea for the tag, I texted her. I said, "So I can't remember. Did it turn out that you also just couldn't stand The Heart of Darkness, or did you like it?" And she goes, "I don't remember ever reading that." And I told her the story, and she goes, "I don't know. I don't think I ever read it." So if she actually did get it assigned for class, she surpassed us by just not even bothering to read it. And there are no notes in her handwriting in this book. So I don't know how she escaped the noose of Joseph Conrad. And I was flipping through and looking at my handwritten notes, and I saw where I wrote off to the side of a passage. I just wrote, "Arg." So I was like, what was I responding to? And here's the passage. I don't even know who is talking here. It says, "It's queer how out of touch with truth women are. They live in a world of their own, and there had never been anything like it, and never can be. It is too beautiful altogether, and if they were to set it up, it would go to pieces before the first sunset. Some confounded fact that we men have been living contentedly with ever since the day of creation would start up and knock the whole thing over." And that's what I put the note on. So I have no intention of reading The Heart of Darkness ever again, but I'm also not getting rid of it just because it's got a classic status that somehow keeps it in the library, even though we are going to continue to avoid it. So I know someone's going to chime in and talk about how much they love this book, and please do let us discuss. Okay, the next one has a cool cover, and I do remember reading this. It's Edith Wharton, Glimpses of the Moon. Not one of her best known works or one of her most highly regarded works, and that's kind of how it lives in my memory, is that I enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was as good as The Age of Innocence or The House of Mirth. It's about a couple who gets married and travels a lot. They go on a cruise. I remember a cruise. It says in 1922, 2 years after publication of the Pulitzer Prize-winning classic The Age of Innocence, Edith Wharton wrote a novel that was acclaimed by the New York Times and quickly became an international bestseller. All right, we have the romantic misadventures of Nick Lansing and Susie Branch, a couple with the right connections but not much in the way of funds. They devise a shrewd bargain. They'll marry and spend a year or so sponging off their wealthy friends, honeymooning in their mansions and villas. Okay, so I think they do. Yeah, I kind of remember this. If you have read this in any kind of, either in recent times or you just have a stronger memory, is this worth a reread? I have been infamously proposing and then failing to reread The House of Mirth for about 2 years, and I really want to attend to that first, because I finally got around to reading The Age of Innocence again. Loved the revisit, and so I want to read The House of Mirth. But should I put this back into my never-ending, super long lineup of rereads, or should I just keep it around because it's pretty? Okay, the next random book that I have never mentioned. I pulled this one because I love the cover. It is the most, I don't get it, but I love it. And here it is, Revenge of the Lawn by Richard Brautigan. It's a short story collection. I actually have a couple of Richard Brautigan books. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I mean, I think I did read them, but I don't remember anything. It was a phase, I guess. But the cover, the cake, a lady, a 70s lady in a 70s chair sitting in front of a homemade chocolate cake and like crumbs on the table. What is this? What in the world? Does it have anything to do with the contents? I don't know. The stories are from 1962 to 1970. Okay, so maybe it's a 60s lady in a 60s chair. I don't know. Basically, it's just kept as a representative of that time and era of fiction, and for this excellent cover. The next one was a book written by somebody that I knew back in graduate school, and it was a big excitement because Dennis Danvers had this book published while we were still there at grad school. And he did go on to have other books published. I think they're mostly science fiction. I've never read a single one of them. He was a really nice guy. We were very excited when this book got published, and we all bought a copy, and then I never read the book. This was back in the late 80s, and it is about a werewolf. It's a psychological thriller love story about a couple that meets, and she has this big secret, and the secret is that she's a werewolf. So it sounds, I mean, it has potential, but for some reason I never read it. It was the early days of being super excited and buying something and then never ever reading it. But I also kept it all these years because of the memories and the story and all the good parties that we both went to. In fact, there was a big party when it got published on a riverboat out in the James River in Richmond, Virginia. So I have the memories, I have the book. I should try to read it sometime just as a personal challenge. Maybe it's really, really good and I've been missing out for, 35 years or whatever. Next is a book I bought. I don't know where I heard about this book, but it was on a list I had. It was one of those lists of things that you're hoping to find. This was before I got into ordering things on thrift books and eBay and stuff like that. But I would just try to track things down when I was at independent bookstores or secondhand stores. And this was on my list, and then I finally found it. And then it was kind of disappointing because I didn't love the book. So the book is is Brother of the More Famous Jack by Barbara Trapito. And I love the title of this book and the cover. And I got this book at an independent bookstore in Spokane, Washington. And I'm going to look it up and put the name on the screen. It was a woman's name. I hope it's still open. And we were in Spokane for this volleyball tournament. My daughter played club and school volleyball for many years, and so we'd go all over on these tournament trips. So we were in Spokane, and this bookstore was in walking distance of this convention center where the girls were playing. And there, when you're at these tournaments, if you have a kid in one of these sports, you know, there's these huge, boring time gaps where the next thing they're going to do is not for 3 hours or something. So another person or two and myself went on this walking expedition to this bookstore, and I found this, but it didn't really live up to my expectations. It wasn't as witty and funny and entertaining. I remember vaguely finding it kind of I think there were some really annoying main characters, but still, here it is. That's another whole mystery here, is the mystery of why I keep or unhaul. Some things it's really obvious why I'm unhauling, and other things, the mystery is really in the keeping. Some of the mysterious reasons for wanting to keep something. The next one that I've never talked about is Deliverance by James Dickey. And I don't want to talk about Deliverance. So I have it, I've read it, and I'm not going to talk about it. You can't make me. Then we have this rather lovely edition of How Far She Went, Stories by Mary Hood. I have this vague sensation, maybe I did one of those shelf tours and I might have come past this, but I don't think I know I never talked about the contents because I don't have anything to say about the contents because I don't think I read them. I think here's what happened here. And I really do like this very clean design here. So back in grad school, I don't know when this stopped happening, but the time period was the late 80s. And if you are a person of a certain age, you remember that when you had a class and you would have to go get a Kinko's packet that went with that class, the teacher would make their own anthology. I did it myself as an adjunct teacher and as a TA. And it was basically, thinking back, it was really quite illegal. We just basically made our own anthologies of essays, stories, poems, whatever it was we wanted to teach in the class. If there wasn't a particular, instead of requiring a bunch of separate books, or if we couldn't find one particular anthology to require, we just cobbled together the stories we wanted and made our own packet, and then everyone had to go buy this packet at Kinko's. Every once in a while, somebody's packet would get rejected for copyright infringement because they lifted too many things from one source. But for the most part, it kind of flew, and we did this, and it could not possibly have been legal. But anyway, so there was a Kinko's packet for a class, and there was a story by Mary Hood, and I liked the story. And then I was at a used bookstore, and I bought this book, and then I put it in my shelf, and I haven't quite gotten to it yet, but I'm definitely on the verge of reading this collection of stories. And to make it even better, it is signed by the author. Now remember, this had to be somewhere between like 88 and 90, and the signature is from 1986. So somebody got the book, had it signed, and this message. This one is for Caroline Tierney. Welcome to my world, Mary Hood, 3/12/86. So somebody went to a book signing, got the book, and then promptly turned it in at the used bookstore. So Caroline Tierney did not cherish her copy of this book, but I guess I did, because it is in pristine condition, just waiting ever so patiently. Look at Mary. Mary's reproaching and judging me for never reading this book. Look at that smirk. Can you believe? Okay, Mary. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know about your attitude. All right, last but not least. I got this recently, but I forgot to put it in the haul because for some reason I shelved it directly into my poetry section instead of putting it with books. That when I get new books, I don't shelve them right away. I kind of save them until I feel like making a haul video. But somehow this missed out, and I'm not about to do one right this minute, so I just threw it into this pile. And so this is City Lights Pocket what is it called? City Lights Pocket Poets Anthology. So it's a collection of poetry from those small City Lights imprints. I have a number of them. Wait, I'll show you an example. These little books, these are the Pocket Poet series. And I have some vintage ones and I have a couple of newer ones. And so this is just an anthology of things that have been in those series published by City Lights Books from San Francisco. And there is a foreword, or it's edited by Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and this is from 1995. I don't think he is with us any longer. And some of the poets in here I am familiar with, and some I'm not, and some I'm not super interested in because there's it kind of gets on the side trail with some of those beat poets that that phase kind of came and went for me a long time ago. But there's also some poets that I do like and some that I wanted to discover. And it was like $5 at Half Price Books. It's a nice little hardcover. So I went ahead and picked it up because I do like a poetry anthology. I'm opening up randomly to an Allen Ginsberg, who I do like. So I will be exploring this a little more closely. And so this one's kind of actually a little haul thing, and the newest one in the batch. And that is it. That is my random set of offerings from my shelves. Let me know, have you read these books? Any comments, any thoughts? And I will be back on Friday to give a wrap up on the week. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Goodbye.